Hi everyone, in this presentation we will be discussing developing oracy for language acquisition and literacy. The learning goals of this presentation include identifying and summarizing the impact of academic language partners, which we will call bilingual pairs, as a high leverage practice for language acquisition and biliteracy. Also, you will learn to collect, appraise, and analyze student oral language patterns, and you'll be able to discuss or at least determine how to create the opportunity for academic language partners or bilingual pairs at your site in your classroom. The idea of bilingual pairs really comes from social constructivism theory, which focuses on the fact that students learn because of their interactions in a group, and that their learning increases their motivation, builds collaborative skills, enhances their ability to problem solve, develops reasoning skills, encourages argument and the sharing of opinions in persuasive and respectful manners, and promoting retention and in-depth processing. It also helps with students' ability to negotiate their ideas with the ideas of others. We use the social constructivism theory for the idea that children acquire language because of their interactions in a group. And so, Bilingual Pairs supports bilingualism and biliteracy development of dual language learners. Social constructivism in dual language meets both of our goals of bilingualism and biliteracy through the specific implementation of this strategy. Below you can see a photograph of students that are seated with bilingual pairs, and they are completing one project together in which both of them have roles and mutual supports to be able to complete the project. So why bilingual pairs? So you can see in the photograph on the left, two students are raising their hands and attempting to actively participate, while the rest of the class is seated and maybe listening, but passively engaged. On the right, we see two groups of students who are actively engaged with each other. The expectation is that 100% of students are participating in the academic language production required for their literacy. Why bilingual pairs? Well, to exchange ideas and build communication skills, but also to reinforce proficient speakers' knowledge of language while also supporting a student's ability to learn and acquire new language. It helps to create a community of emergent bilingual learners of which all of our students are a part. It increases active engagement in learning. Students themselves can provide scaffolds and culturally relevant opportunities. It's also an ability to raise the status of the minority language or Spanish. Confirming ideas with a partner always increases student success. That's why we encourage bilingual pairs. Dominant communication practices in the classroom usually include teachers initiating a question, such as, "Who can tell me what this word on the page means?" Teachers normally allow children to respond by raising their hands and giving a response. The teacher then follows with evaluating that response. "Oh, I like the way you said that." Or, who else can add to that response? These dominant communication practices exemplify the productive language practices of very few students and are not engaging for the purposes that we need bilingual pairs to be engaging, and that is for language acquisition. There are times when teacher direct instruction and hand raising is appropriate in the classroom, and there are times when 100% participation techniques might not be the indicated strategy. However, 100% participation techniques usually involve a teacher prompting and giving some wait time to think. Teachers then can prepare a sentence frame or even word list that students might use to be able to think about how they will share with their friends. Students then pair with their strategic bilingual pair to share their responses and then come back to the group. In order to achieve 100% participation, it's probably going to take more time and more specific planning because the use of time needs to be so efficient. So returning to the why, first of all, bilingual pairs will increase your students' motivation, build their collaborative skills, then enhance their ability to problem solve, develop their reasoning, encourage them to argue and share opinions with persuasion but with respect. It will promote their retention and their in-depth processing and helps with the negotiating the ideas of others. But overwhelmingly, we support bilingual pairs because it helps children to develop bilingualism, which supports biliteracy in their development. What's unique to bilingual pairs? Well, we really need to go for comprehensible input, meaning that what students are learning and what's going in is comprehensible. We also need to work on comprehensible output, and for that, students need scaffolds, they need low-risk environments, and they need supports from friends. Creating bilingual pairs starts with observing, prompting, and assessing a student's language use and patterns using the solemn or another tool. In these videos, which you will have access to, you can go ahead and click and hear some samples of students that are using their language. Then using the solemn tool, you can go back and evaluate how their language is used and make recommendations of the kind of pair they might need to help support their language development, but also to observe the strengths that students have that they might be able to use to support another student's language development. Here's an example of the solemn tool. The solemn tool asks you to please record the student's name, the language in which you are observing them, their grade, the date, who you are, and we'll be looking at things like fluency, vocabulary, structure, and listening comprehension. Students will move across a continuum from a newcomer to the language all the way over to a language model. What you'll do is you'll sum the scores for each area. Students that are scoring 17 and above may be considered a language model when you're creating bilingual pairs. However, we'll also be looking at students' needs. What do they need in their bilingual pair, either in Spanish or in English? And what are their bilingual strengths in English and in Spanish? All of this information can help support you to create bilingual pairs that meet the needs of the project you're working on. Step 2. After you've assessed some of your students' language abilities, go ahead and choose pairs. You're choosing pairs by their linguistic and academic strengths and their needs in developing the Spanish language. But you're also going to be picking different pairs for students whose needs might be in the area of developing the English language. All of our emergent bilingual students need development in both Spanish and in English, and for that reason, we might be pairing students for different purposes, including pairing students who speak the same home language with students that speak a different home language, or pairing students that have the same home language together for the purpose of reinforcing and enhancing the home language. You'll also want to make considerations for social and behavioral needs. Step 3 is to pair for relationship, purpose, and project. It's critical when making your bilingual pairs to create a climate of respect and support. You'll have to introduce the relationship and create opportunities for bonding. Students will need ample opportunities to role play and practice partner talk skills. Also, you'll want to change partners according to your students' needs. Here's a short sample of a bilingual pair working together in Writer's Workshop.
Yo llamo a mi mamá, ella no le gustan dientes. Yo quiero ir con el diente a la escuela. I'm gonna go with, look the diente. En la noche mi diente estaba en mi pillow con mi dinero.
In this sample, you saw one child sharing his writing sample with another child, talking about what happens when his tooth falls out. The child came to a point in his story where he said that he would put his teeth under his pillow, and he didn't know what word to use. At that point, his friend picked up his pencil and wrote and said the word almohada. While we don't encourage students to be writing on each other's work, the whole purpose is that students are resources for one another. So where in your lesson should students be talking with each other? If you think about it, they should be talking before they're learning, during their learning and after their learning if our goal really is to achieve bilingualism and biliteracy. And for that reason, we do need 100% participation. Bilingual pairs will help facilitate your think, pair, share, your turn-in talks, your shoulder partners, your partner A, your partner B, so that all students are highly engaged in producing the target language. If you'd like, pause a moment to share and reflect with a partner. When you're ready, go ahead and pause the slide and go through some of the discussion questions. Thanks for coming back to the presentation. I hope you had a great time sharing and reflecting on how you might use bilingual pairs as a high leverage practice. Setting up for a coaching response, auditing pairs and partner practices. As you can see in these 4 photographs, we're looking from moving away from places where kids may not have a language partner to a place in our instruction and learning where kids do have a language partner and a resource. We're looking for a situation in which students are doing less independent work, but having more time to work together and struggle with some of the concepts that they're learning. The emphasis here is on getting kids to be able to communicate together, but providing the opportunity for kids to be able to communicate in the languages that we are targeting. You may want to stop the presentation at this point and think to yourself, how would you coach a teacher, a partner, a friend to move towards bilingual pairs? How would you look at your own practice? Do you have bilingual pairs? What's the next step you could take? Thanks for coming back. Pause a moment to share and reflect. How can we examine student language use in our school? What kinds of things should we be looking for? What kind of data can we collect? How will we use the data to create student-centered coaching responses? And what resources are already available to you to be able to do this work? Go ahead and pause the slideshow to share and reflect. Welcome back. So you should be able at this point to advocate for the practice of academic language partners or bilingual pairs as a high leverage practice for language acquisition and biliteracy. You may also feel comfortable in advocating for this practice in classrooms where biliteracy isn't the goal, but monolingual English literacy is the goal. As we know, oral language development is a precursor for literacy. You also want to think about how to collect, appraise, and analyze the practice of academic language partners or bilingual pairs. There are some tools available for you. For example, the Dual Language Classroom Visit tool, the Solemn that was presented in this presentation, or you may take some photos or video of your students and then reflect on how you could support the language acquisition of your partnerships. Lastly, you want to create opportunities for academic language partners and bilingual pairs at your sites or in your classroom in response to the data you've collected. Thank you so much, and I hope this has been an informative presentation for you. If you need additional resources, please contact me at dmgarcia@waukesha.k12.wi.com.